What's up guys, and welcome to another 360 camera comparison. In this video, we are going to be comparing the Osmo 360's Super Night mode and the Insta360 X5's pure video mode and compare them to each other. We're going to test this both outside and then also in an inside scenario. We're also going to be testing the single lens mode. Now, the Osmo 360 does not have a Super Night mode in single lens mode. The X5 has pure video in both single and spherical. So we'll see if that makes a difference. But first, if you haven't already, please click that subscribe button, especially if you've seen any of my other content. It really helps this channel rise to the top. It's really my goal to hit 20,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I think it's possible with your help. Thanks so much for your support. Let's get into it. So low light has traditionally been an area where 360 cameras have fell short. And that's mainly due to the fact that they have much smaller sensors. I mean, you can only fit so much in such a small camera like this, especially with all the processing power that's required. However, with the new Osmo 360 and the X5 and the 8K that it films in, and the bigger sensors, I wonder if that's going to make a difference. And not only that, you have the pure video mode, which Insta360 has, and then Super Night mode. What really makes a difference though is going to be the sensor size. The Osmo 360 has a 1-inch sensor or thereabouts. It takes a 1-inch sensor and takes the square aspect of it and uses that, which means that it can gather a little bit more light than the X5. From my research with ChatGPT, we've found that it's roughly a 16% smaller sensor than the 1-inch sensor. Now, will that make a big difference in an area like this? It is currently sunset, and it is this mizzle, what we call as mizzle, it's like a misty rain, and it's gross. It's probably one of the worst environments you can be filming in, but fortunately, the 360 cameras are both waterproof, so we don't really have an issue. As you can see, I'm recording with both of the microphones, DJI mic minis, and on the Pocket 3 and on the Osmo 360. And I have the brand new GPS remote on the X5, which actually is really interesting. Stay tuned for a review about that. So now we're gonna transition away from using the Pocket 3. This is in low light mode, just for reference. And we're gonna move to these 360 cameras, and I'm gonna have to occasionally wipe the lens off because they're getting very wet. So right out off the bat, I would say that the image looks a lot brighter on the Osmo 360. I don't know if that's the screen or whether it is actually much better. I've had scenarios like that before where everything looks better and brighter on one camera, but the reality is very different. So we'll have to see. It's pretty much dark now. As you heard the chimes going off earlier, it is 8 o'clock. It's getting a lot darker, a lot earlier here in England, which means autumn and winter are on their way very soon, which is not a good thing. And if you've spent any time in England in the winter time, you'll know it's not fun. Okay, so what's the plan for this little test then? Well, first of all, we're going to make our way down to the historic city where there's a beautiful cathedral, which I believe is about 2,000 years old. It's pretty well lit there, but it is still pretty much dusk. So we'll see how the cameras perform in that scenario. And then we're going to test another real life scenario that you might be in, especially if you're going to be vlogging, and that's an indoor scenario. We're going to go to one of my favorite pubs that Lord Nelson himself visited almost 200 years ago. And it kind of has that vibe as if you're stepping back into history. So we're going to go there and get a pint and review the footage afterwards. so it's a lot darker than I expected it to be up here. Maybe there's not normally more lights here, but this is very dark. The sky's not exactly black yet. Still a little bit of ambient light from the sky. I can't see the details on the door in the cathedral with my own eyes. I think any camera would have a hard time seeing in the dark here unless it was like a Sony A7S. Over there's a statue. I can't even see the face on that statue. I've got pretty good eyes. I'm really curious to see what this footage is like. If I take a good look at the screen, it's kind of hard to tell on both of these cameras. One thing I did find though is that because the screen is so bright on this GPS unit, I guess you could probably use it as a little bit of a light as well as a mic. Another feature we didn't expect to have. So why even do this test in the first place? If you can have a 1-inch sensor in the Pocket 3 and expect to vlog all the time, and the 360 has a 1-inch sensor as well, why wouldn't you just take out the 360, ditch the Pocket 3, and have the versatility of a 360 camera, and then get rid of your Pocket 3? I have a feeling it's not going to work quite like that, and this test should give us the answer. So, this is the pub. This is called the Wickham Arms. It's a very, very old pub. Like I mentioned earlier, Lord Nelson apparently stopped by here. And that was over 200 years ago, which is pretty insane. If you don't know who Lord Nelson is, he's a pretty big figure in the UK. Basically, he won the Battle of Trafalgar, which is, from what I understand, against the French. And he's somewhat of a legend. There's a column in London called Nelson's Column, which is a huge column. You might have seen it if you've ever been to central London by the National Gallery. And right at the very top is Lord Nelson. You can also go see his ship in Portsmouth where he was shot. But anyway, I came here so that we could check out the low light capabilities indoors. If you can see this magnificent place, we're around the corner from the from Winchester College, which is renowned for having a lot of the prime ministers and famous people come from it, a private school. So over the years, you've had a lot of influential people come into this pub. I highly recommend you come and visit. What do you guys think from the footage that you've seen already? Do you think it's good? Do you think the Insta360 is better than the X5 with the 1-inch sensor? Do you think the other way around? The X5 is probably going to be heavily processed, which we're about to find out, but I'd love it if you could leave a comment down below. These things wirelessly connect to iPads, phones, and all that sort of stuff using the Mimo app and the Insta360 app. It's really user-friendly, so we're going to do that right now. And perhaps whilst I do that, I'll switch to my Osmo Pocket 3. Okay, so we moved from the pub because I downloaded the footage off of these cameras and onto my iPad, and honestly, on that tiny little screen, not being able to actually put it into an edit where I could compare it side to side like you've just watched, didn't give me the best idea of what the footage actually was like on a big screen. And my conclusion was that the X5 does way better in low light than the Osmo 360. But after analyzing it literally side to side in the same way that you've been seeing with some of those swiped frames, it becomes really clear that yes, the X5 is absolutely brighter, and there's been a lot of post-processing work done within that camera to really like brighten up the shadows and stuff. But there's so much noise, and you can see like the AI chips in it doing a lot of work to try and bring stuff out of the shadows, which in some ways you could say is cool because you can actually see into darker areas. But when you look at things like my face, it's really obvious that there's like a lot of noise, and it's just odd. Whereas the Osmo 360 has a much more natural take on it. I did think it was very interesting how the Osmo 360 was completely on a different level to the Pocket 3 with its 1-inch sensor, although they both have a 1-inch sensor, kind of. The Pocket 3 is vastly better in low light than the Osmo 360. It's worth noting that I didn't do any post-production on any of these clips. Like I didn't do any editing in DaVinci, which is what I edit my videos in. But what do you guys think? I'd love to know down in the comments below. Do you like that kind of elevated shadows look? Do you like to see more detail, or are you fine with a bit more of a smoother, natural, detailed, lower light in a low light scenario? I'd really be interested to hear your thoughts. Another thing that I just want to touch on briefly is that I did try single lens mode a couple of times, and I'll run these clips over as I talk about that. The single lens mode was a little bit more interesting. I found that the Osmo 360 in single lens mode in general is like vastly better than the X5's single lens mode. However, with the Osmo 360, there is no low light version of single lens mode like there is in the full spherical video, whereas the X5 does have pure video mode for low light scenarios in single lens mode. So let me know what you think about that footage above. All of my affiliate links, if you decide to pick up anything, are down in the description down below. Subscribe if you feel so inclined. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.